nonetheless taken time out of their schedules to join us and talk about this very important subject. I have my two co-chairs, Antonio Guterres and Jim Yong Kim. I'd like to thank them as well for being here, because for some time now, they've made a strong commitment to the fight against global warming. They've made an essential commitment, and I know they have a very busy schedule, and I'm very grateful to them for being with us here today in Paris. I'd like to start with the fears, because the really important thing are the commitments that are going to be made and everything that's going to be said during our panel discussions. What is really playing out here is a new stage in our common struggle. And let me say this before all of you, including many young people here in the hall, who I welcome. We're losing the battle. Let's not make any mistake. We can feel great about being here. We like being among ourselves. It's definitely a wonderful day, but we're losing the battle. Before, we had an opportunity, and people didn't know, but now for the last 20 years, we actually do know, and we know the wonderful work that the IPCC has done, that we have to keep financing, we have to protect the IPCC. A huge number of scientists the world over have even just a couple of weeks ago put out a very important global call. When we were at the COP in Bonn, chaired by Fiji, we heard the call put out by scientists. And so 2 years to the date, an agreement was signed in Paris, where practically the entire International Committee decided to shoulder a number of commitments. Some say, well, that's not enough, that these weren't firm commitments, but it was a beginning, and that was essential. 2 years have gone by since the Paris Agreement, and so we know with each passing day the seriousness of the situation. We know that the agreement was signed, but what has been done since that time? Some have decided that they're planning to leave the agreement. That's a very bad piece of news, and if we're here in such great numbers today, it's because so many of us have decided not to accept the American government's decision to leave the agreement. And we've heard from those who speak on behalf of America's Pledge. Thank you for taking that initiative, and yes, they deserve a round of applause.
Le gouverneur Brown de Californie.
We have Mike Bloomberg, we have the governor of California. They've said, well, they're going to stand in place of the American federal government, states, cities, private sector players. We're going to play a role ourselves. And nonetheless, the agreement has been weakened. And unfortunately, we're not moving quickly enough. And that's what's so serious. If we committed to keeping below 1.5 degrees, and yet here we're at about 3 degrees maybe, and that's not at all. It has nothing to do with the commitments that were made 2 years ago. And so we have to be aware of the fact that there are heads of state and government here behind me in 50, 80, 100 years, 5, 10, or 15 of these heads of state or of governments are coming from countries where that will not exist if we keep on the present trajectory. So we can't say that we didn't know. We've decided that there are many around. We've decided that we just don't want there to be people around this table whose countries won't be here in future. And so the issue, the challenge here is to face up to this challenge, because none of us can say that we didn't know. What are we going to make of the coming decades? And we've been elected for a given mandate. And the time of our mandate, during the time of a mandate, we won't actually see the main repercussions. And so governments can say, well, we don't have to do anything. And businesses make calculations over much shorter terms. We're not talking about the same time frame as the disappearance of these islands, of these vulnerable countries. And yet, all of us have to turn word into deed, because we all have to be accountable. And so this One Planet Summit for a new generation, it's not just about negotiating a statement, a declaration, but it's about the 120 states that are represented here, the regions, the cities, all those and all those non-governmental organizations, because all of them are gathered here today because they're all essential actors. We have sovereign funds, we have insurance companies, we have banks, we have philanthropists, all those who represent private money, our ability to harness this money, to regulate these funds, and we have private businesses, we have NGOs, civil society organizations, young people, and scientists. That is all the stakeholders, all the actors of this transformation, because it's not just one person in one country that's going to change things. And so what we have to do in the coming hours is very tangibly, each one of us, explain the firm commitments that we're making to change what seems to be an unavoidable destiny, to see what type of country, what type of world that we want. This is what I plan to change tangibly, and this is what I'm announcing before you here today. For too long a time, many did not want to take the floor publicly, and I'm grateful to all those that have come. It's not easy to get people all together to make such commitments publicly, and they've agreed to do so, and I'm very grateful to them. And so all those who agree to make a firm commitment will get extra talking time this afternoon. Private players, financial organizations, philanthropists, you're going to take the floor in order to announce a commitment, and we will follow up on this commitment. We will each follow up on one another's commitments. When it comes to renewable energies and so forth, all of this will be followed up and verified, because we're here not for words, but for deeds, because we are faced with an ongoing emergency, and the challenge for our generation is to act quickly and win this battle against time and against an inexorable destiny, to change our societies, our countries, our economies, so that our children, and perhaps even we ourselves, might be able to choose our future, choose the planet where we live, and against warming, against the disappearance of vulnerable countries, and in favor of a thoroughgoing transformation. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for mobilizing, for putting pressure on everyone. And now I'm going to yield the floor to my two co-chairs.